Hello, my dear students. This is Miss Julina, your guide in your English subject, and I welcome you all to another instructional video. And in this video, you are going to learn another lesson in your oral communication and context subject, which is all about the different functions of communication. And to start with, so let me share to you first our student learning objectives. So after watching this video, you are expected to first, you have to define and differentiate accurately the five functions of communication. Second, you have to appreciate open-mindedly the importance of understanding the five functions of communication and be able to practice it in a real-life situation. And the last one, you have to present or portray at least one function of communication. And to start with, so let us try to define first the word function. So for its general meaning, the word function actually refers to the special purpose why a certain thing exists. So if we try to connect this one with communication, then we can say that the functions of communication refer to how humans use language for different purposes. So it actually answers the question, why do we communicate? So we communicate mainly because we want to share ideas or information to other people. Or it could be that we just really want to share our feelings or emotions to those people who are really close to our hearts. So there are actually a lot of reasons as to why we communicate with other people. That's why we have this thing called the functions of communication. So if you want to know more about this concept, make sure to finish watching this video until the end. So there are actually five functions of communication, my dear students. We have the first one, control or regulation. We also have social interaction, motivation, emotional expression, and the last one, we also have information dissemination. So as much as possible, I'll try to explain these concepts briefly in order for you to understand them easily. Now let's start first with regulation or control. So in this function, communication functions to control behavior. So for regulation or control, the key word here is control. So in this function of communication, you can use this one if you want to use language, gestures, or emotions in managing, controlling, or regulating certain individuals or activities. So meaning to say, if you really want to use this function, you really have the power to regulate, direct, or dominate in the conversation. And you can use this function in a formal and non-formal setting. For example, a doctor's prescription. So every time a doctor will say, take your medicine 3 times a day. So of course, you really have to follow this instruction. We also have a parent's instruction to their child. So every time your mother or father will say, go back to your room. So these two scenarios are also a good example of regulation or control. We also have a police officer directing pedestrians not to jaywalk but cross on the pedestrian lane. And one last example, a teacher's instruction. For example, if your teacher will say, submit all your outputs tomorrow. So these are just some of the examples of regulation or control as a function of communication. So again, for regulation or control, just a quick review. In this function, you have the power to regulate, control, or direct other people's behavior. But just remember, my dear students, that when using this kind of function, you really have to control the recipient in a positive way. Because if you try to abuse or misuse this function, this will only lead to any conflicts and misunderstanding with the people around us. And we don't want want that to happen, right? Okay, but you can use this function if you just want to assert authority and if you want to express your ideas confidently. Okay, so that's it for regulation or control, and I hope I was able to explain this concept clearly. So now let's proceed to the second type of function of communication, and we have here the social interaction. So in this function of communication, my dear students, communication allows individuals to interact or communicate with other people. So, for social interaction, this is really one of the good things of being human because it makes life more meaningful by helping us connect and relate with other people in a more sensible way. So, this is the time wherein we try to build good relationships and attachment with the people around us. And without this function, we really cannot have genuine friendships and intimate relationship as well. So if you really want to have healthy relationships with all the people around you, so this is really one of the functions of communication that you should really master well. Now I have here some sample statements that use this kind of function. First, let's hang out on Saturday. We also have, how are you? Would you like to have some coffee? And the last example that we have here is nice to meet you. So these are just some examples of statements that use the function of social interaction. So for social interaction in this function, communication allows individuals to interact and socialize with other people. But just remember, my dear students, that when using this kind of function, you really have to use appropriate language or words in order to maintain respect for yourself and for other people as well. Moreover, we also really have to respect the boundaries of other people in order to maintain peace within our community. So, as much as possible, we really have to avoid conflicts and misunderstandings. Okay, so hopefully you can do that, my dear students. And now for the third type of function of communication, we have here the motivation. So in this function, communication motivates or encourages people to live better. So personally speaking, I really like this function because it can really help a lot of people, especially those people who are really struggling with their mental health or those people who are already at the brink of giving up. And I tell you, my dear students, our words are very powerful. It can really change someone's perspective in life within seconds. Take for example, just imagine that you are the person in this picture. I know, my dear students, that you have your own silent battles that not everyone is aware of, and I also understand that there are times that you might feel depressed and alone. And if you feel this kind of emotions, it's really tempting to feel worthless and you just want to end everything, like you just want to end your life. Then suddenly one person messaged you, and it could be your friend, your classmate, or a family member, and then they reminded you how amazing you are, and they are very grateful for your existence. I know it's just one person, my dear student, but that person can really save your life at that moment. You get what I mean? So, meaning to say, words really have the power to either kill or heal people. So, you really have to choose your words carefully and never ever use words that could really ruin someone's spark. And that's the beauty of motivation, my dear students, and hopefully you can use this function effectively. So I have here one example of a motivational quote coming from one of my favorite books titled Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. So in this book, Maury said, if you hold back on the emotions, if you don't allow yourself to go all the way through them, you can never get to being detached. You're too busy being afraid. You're afraid of the pain. You're afraid of the grief. You're afraid of the vulnerability that loving entails. But by throwing yourself into these emotions, by allowing yourself to dive in all the way, over your head even, you experience them fully and completely. You know what pain is? You know what love is, you know what grief is, and only then can you say, alright, I have experienced that emotion. I recognize that emotion. Now I need to detach from that emotion for a moment. So again, this quote is from the book Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. Another example of a motivational quote coming from the book The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. In this book, she said, you start to let go the day you take one step toward building a new life, and then let yourself lay and stare at the ceiling and cry for as many hours as you need. You start to let go the day you realize that you cannot continue to revolve around a missing gap in your life, and going on as you were before will simply not be an option. You start to let go the moment you realize that this is the impetus, this is the catalyst, this is that moment the movies are made about and the books are written around and songs are inspired by. This is the moment you realize that you will never find peace standing in the ruins of what you used to be. So again, this quote is from the book The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. So these are just some of the examples of a motivational quote or message. And for the next function of communication, we have here emotional expression. And in this function, communication facilitates people's expression of their feelings and emotions. So for emotional expression in this function, my dear students, this is the time wherein you fully express all kinds of emotions that you may encounter in your life. It could be that you are really very happy, or you're sad, or you're angry, and all the other emotions that we have. And this function is really very important, my dear student, because expressing our emotions from time to time is really very beneficial to our mental state as well, because if we try to ignore our emotions, there will be a tendency that you will really encounter or experience short term mental and physical problems that could really lead to a burnout, which is something that we don't want to experience, right? So if you're happy, celebrate it with your friends. And if you are sad, cry yourself out. And if you are angry, express it from time to time. And if you lost a loved one, please give yourself time to grieve. Remember, suppressing your emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, grief, or frustration, can only lead to any physical stress on your body. So again, for emotional expression, in this function, communication facilitates people's expression of their feelings and emotions. But just remember, my dear students, that when using this function, this may also limit the effectiveness of communication if it's not used correctly. So as much as possible, just try to balance your emotions as well and express it in a more appropriate context. And for the next function of communication, we have here information dissemination. And in this function, communication functions to convey information. So for information dissemination, in this function, you communicate with other people because you want to relay or convey information to them. So just like what I'm doing right now, wherein I am conveying to you, since there are 5 functions of communication, and we can disseminate information through the following platforms. First, we have news, text messages, websites, bulletin board announcements, and all the other communication platforms that we are using right now, such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and many more. And when using this function, my dear student, just please take note of the following. First, you always have to tell the truth. Next, always be specific. Be brief and straight to the point. Avoid using jargons in order to avoid misunderstanding with other people. And the last one, always be precise with your information. So again, there are 5 functions of communication, my dear students. And we have first, control or regulation. We also have social interaction, motivation, emotional expression, and information dissemination. So hopefully everything is clear. So before I end this video, so just a quick reminder, my dear students, that a good relationship always starts with good communication. So practice having good communication with all the people around you so that you can have healthy relationship with them. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again on my next instructional video. Goodbye everyone.